Hello, Packers fans. Welcome into PackersNews.com. I'm Kassidy Hill here live from Ford Field, where we are just about an hour and a half from the Packers versus the Lions. Packers looking to get back on track after dropping to 3-5, losing their fourth straight last week, and coming into a team that is 1-6 against the Detroit Lions, but a team that has been dynamic here at home at Ford Field. If you have any questions, feel free to go ahead and drop them in the comments. Since we are running a little bit behind here than what we would normally do, we'll even go ahead and announce the inactives for you here while we're on this Facebook Live. But first, to just get back to the locker room this week, as we were saying, this Detroit team here at Ford Field has been averaging over 35 points a game at home. They lead the league in explosive plays, one of the best offenses for downfield deep shots in the NFL right now. Of course, on the flip side, their defense has not been able to stop anyone, and that is why they have been outscored. But I asked Aaron Rodgers this week, is this Packers offense capable of a shootout if that's what this game becomes? And he essentially said, we better be. But of course, it is the Packers defense that is going to look to really kind of affect this game and change this game and stop those Lions' explosive plays, which very few people have been able to do. We talked to Jair Alexander and Rasul Douglas in the locker room this week about stopping those explosive plays and what it does to really stretch a secondary. And they said, essentially, you just have to keep the top on. Let's hear a little bit more from those two guys from this week.
They lead the league in explosives, so they have a bunch of explosive players, and we need to just stay on top of them.
Just trying to give them up.
They lead the league in explosives, so they have a bunch of explosive players, and we need to just stay on top of them.
Just trying to give them up.
Let's see, we got a couple of comments coming in. Wendy, happy birthday. Maybe the Packers will get a win for you today. The biggest factor in the Detroit offense has been Amon-Ra St. Brown, who can get downfield, who can get open, who can take a top off of defense especially. And so the Packers defense knows that that's going to be who they have to stop more than anyone else. Let's try again to hear from the guys this week.
They lead the league in explosives, so they have a bunch of explosive players, and we need to just stay on top of them.
Just trying to give them up. Try not to bust coverages, communicate well, and just make sure everybody on the same page. If you get beat playing ball, but try not to give up a play where it's because we don't know what we in, or half the team know what they're in, and then the other half don't. So just communicate.
It's another week for us. Like, it's another week to show we the best in the world. So we speaking to this all existing, we speaking to this. So this is just another opportunity. We know that they lead, they're the number one team in the league right now with explosive plays. And that's something that we know coming into the game, but be just aware of it.
What about St. Brown in particular? Is that someone you want to be on? Is that his number one guy?
Yeah, they go to him quite often. I think they do a good job distributing the ball, but we'll see what that presents on game day.
So I make things hard for him. To play with that chip on his shoulder, he feel like he the best, and feel like he got sure about he the best.
Man, that's a great wide receiver. That's a great young wide receiver, especially. But you gotta try to find a way, either hands on. Just as a DB, either your hands on, do whatever type of technique that you can, because a guy like that, for a fact, he's gonna make his plays. You just gotta try to limit him.
As we heard there from the guys, Eric Stokes specifically, they know that St. Brown is going to make some plays. At the end of the day, it's about limiting him. Can they at least stop him enough times to give this Packers offense a chance to score some points? Something that admittedly they have struggled doing this year. Now, of course, on defense as well today is going to start in the front seven. Jamal Williams, former Packer, who's been able to gain a lot of ground up the middle and around the edge as well. But the Packers will be without Devondre Campbell today. He injured his knee last week in Buffalo. In his place, Quay Walker will be calling plays, and I believe that was even a question from Randy. With Campbell out, who will step in for him? It will be the rookie linebacker, Quay Walker, wearing the green dot today, calling the defensive plays, something that's a little bit different for him. He called the plays at Georgia, but of course, in college, you do not have the mic in the helmet. You're getting the plays from the sideline and then relaying them to the huddle. And now that he's here in Green Bay with guys from all over the country, he admitted that the biggest struggle he's going to have in calling the plays today will be his Southern accent. He is from Cordova, Georgia. has a little bit of a Southern drawl, and he admits that when he gets winded and when he gets going, it's harder to enunciate correctly so that everyone can understand him. Quay talked about that in the locker room this week and about how that is the biggest issue he's facing and how he may even need to have a translator in the huddle. Let's hear from Quay.
Weird having somebody in your head?
Yeah, it was. I remember my first time, Ricky minicamp, they had me do it. And that felt so weird.
Weird having somebody in your head?
Yeah, it was. I remember my first time, Ricky minicamp, they had me do it. And that felt so weird, but it's kind
of... If we can. In the meantime, a couple of questions here. Coming in from Levi, how do they limit St. Brown hurting them after the catch? If you're going to stop a guy after the catch, that's going to rely on your deep safeties. And as we know, there have been some issues with Darnell Savage and tackling so far this year. Do they bring Adrian Amos up a little bit more? Do they keep safety help over the top at all times? Having that safety help over the top will be your best bet at stopping St. Brown when he does inevitably, like Eric Stokes said, make some of those plays. Joe Barry, let's talk about this for a second while we're here. Joe Barry talked this week about the possibility of switching Darnell Savage and Rasul Douglas. I'm putting Rasul Douglas at safety and Darnell Savage at nickel, and essentially said, that's not really a possibility. It's not something that we've considered because even though Darnell Savage would be an incredible nickel, do we have someone to replace him at safety? However, it should be noted, Rasul Douglas did take snaps at safety a couple of times during training camp, that it is a position he feels comfortable playing. I asked Jair Alexander about that this week. What would this secondary look like if you flipped Savage and Rasul? And he essentially said, anyone here can play any secondary position except Adrian Amos can't play corner. Whether that was in jest or seriousness is up for debate. But he felt comfortable if Rasul was at safety and Darnell Savage was at nickel. However, it should also be noted that Rasul Douglas and Jair Alexander, since the defense has been playing more man, have been able to communicate a lot more. And having the two of them on the same side of the field and being able to talk a lot more has made a massive difference in the secondary, as we've seen the past couple of weeks. And so the question remains, is it worth switching them when you finally got the right corners that you need in place? We're going to try again to hear from Quay this week on what it's like to call the plays. Let's see if it works.
Weird having somebody in your head?
yeah, it was. I remember my first time, Ricky minicamp, they had me do it. And that felt so weird, but it's kind of a good feeling, I'll say, but pretty good. The only thing I'm worried about is people not understanding.
Because of your country accent?
Yeah, man. My words slur together.
Okay, give me an example of a play call.
Let me see. Stay flex, Mac nut, back of fire zone. Alert, flood, alert 1H, or something like that. See, it sounds good right now, but once I get a little windy on run around for like 2 plays, it sounds way worse than that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can understand you, but I'm also from Alabama.
Okay, well, we good then. We good.
So you said you have a translator in the huddle because you get 2 country?
Yeah, some people help me out. They have Chris, KB, I've been in the huddle with him. He'll turn around and say it. But most people don't hear me. They don't really understand. It just depends on what the call is. So, like mixer, like M-I-S-E-R, I say mixer. And they think mixer. They're like, is you saying mixer? I'm like, nah, mixer. But I say mixer.
Like Mr.?
Mixer.
Yeah.
See how I say it? So, yeah, I have to work on that.
So you have to enunciate.
Yeah, that's it.
What other responsibilities sort of change when you have that helmet?
Nothing much, I'll say. Just got to do way more communicate. I got to talk way more, I'll say. That's pretty much it.
You're pretty quiet, so is that weird?
It is, but I can't be quiet on the field. So it's like, I play linebacker, I have to talk. But it's kind of weird because I'm talking so much. And that's about it. Normally Dre do all the talking, so I do a little talking, but, it's all right, though. I'm looking forward to it.
Has he given you any tips?
So once we break the huddle, we just keep relaying the call to myself. So I relay the whole call because it may take a minute for the offense to snap the ball, whatever the case may be. Or they may break into a formation, then they may go out to empty. And I don't want to forget the alert, so I keep saying the call to myself. Flex Mac nut, back of fire zone. Flex Mac nut, back of fire zone. Just keep saying it like that to myself so I can be on top of everything.
As someone from Alabama, I can sympathize there with Quay on being able to hide your accent enough for everyone in Wisconsin and the Midwest to understand you. There was a couple other questions coming in, and we did just get a report that Christian Watson will play today despite being questionable. It's a huge boost back for the Packers offense, especially being able to get a downfield threat, someone to take the top off the defense. Of course, Samori Toure has had a really good couple of weeks here. In fact, I saw a question in here about Samori. Levi asked, does Toure get more meaningful snaps this week? I fear he'll be lost in the shuffle again. He could be. What works in his favor right now is no Randall Cobb, and the fact that he has been able to gain more trust from Aaron Rodgers the past couple of weeks. You know, last week in Buffalo, Toure had the touchdown. But if you remember, he also had the play before the touchdown that was also a comeback on a scramble drill. It was ruled incomplete after a review because it had hit the ground. It was a low ball. However, just that trust on the comeback play is what Aaron Rodgers wants to see more and more of. In fact, he talked a lot about that this week and about how much trust he's starting to get in Samori Toure. I know the internet's a little fickle here, but we're going to try again on a video, see if we can hear from Samori and Rodgers on the possibility of Toure factoring more into this offense.
Aaron Rodgers is notorious for giving his teammates nicknames. From Big Dog to Captain Blood, he doles out the monikers to describe everyone around him. But during training camp, he gave rookie Samori Toure a nickname that was, well, not welcomed.
I nicknamed him Captain Casual in training camp as a way to maybe encourage him to start practicing with a little different type of tempo, practicing like a pro. And I don't think he really appreciated that nickname. I mean, who would?
I wasn't like mad, but I was just like, dang, like that's not what you want to be known for. Like I said, you don't want, one of the greatest quarterbacks thinking you're casual. So I'm like, all right, if that's what they think of me, I gotta change something.
Rodgers pulled Toure to the side and told the rookie receiver he was too good to be a healthy scratch, as he was the first 6 weeks, and should be suiting up by mid-season. So Toure made some changes.
It's gone from a nickname that was legitimate to more of a joke now, because his practice habits have really picked up, and I've been impressed with him.
You're pretty laid back as it is, though. Did you realize, was there a time where you realized, like, okay, this is the NFL, I have to step up the intensity?
Yeah, I think that was a big part of it, too, just because I'm so laid back off the field as well. And I can be at times on the field because, I'm not trying to be, super laid back, but I want to be even. You know what I mean? Never get too up, never get too down, but I kind of let my laid back personality kind of carry over to the field, and that's something that you need to be separate. That's one thing I learned. Once I step on that field, I can't be laid back anymore. I can still be, calm, cool, and collected, but I got to be, intentional with everything.
On Sunday, Toure played in his second game, scoring his first NFL touchdown. He did so after doing something Rodgers has asked the rookies to understand all season. You've talked about wanting the young guys especially, to sort of learn you and your tendencies. On that scramble drill touchdown, is that kind of what you're talking about? Like wanting to see more of from those? It's just,
it's leaving room for the reaction. We got to get away from the robotic and into the feel, into the reactions, the instincts that kick in. And that was just a natural play by him. He's running a deep post. He sees me kind of move to my left, comes out of it, and makes a play for a touchdown.
It's just really getting to the open spot, like when it comes to scramble drill with 12, like one of the biggest things is just go to where nobody's at and go to where the open spot is, and that's kind of what I did. I ran the post, it was covered. I felt like there was nobody, inside of me, so I just turned back inside. It's just kind of a feel thing.
Captain Casual is more of a joke now, but Samori Toure wouldn't mind if his quarterback found a new nickname.
If you could pick your own nickname, what would it be now?
That's a good question. I'm gonna have to think about that one. But yeah, definitely not Captain Casual.
From Lambeau Field, I'm Kassidy Hill, PackersNews.com.
So as we heard there from Aaron Rodgers and Samori Toure, a very good possibility of him factoring more into this offense, to answer your question, Levi. While that video was rolling, we did find out that all 5 questionable players for the Packers will be active today. So that means the only active players that will be out that from Friday's injury report will be Devondre Campbell and Shamar Jarl-Charles. Of course, that also means Christian Watson will be playing. In fact, Christian Watson is right there. I don't know if you can see him on this from this shot, but he is out here warming up right now with the offense. We've seen him. I even saw Randall Cobb warming up. Of course, he won't be playing today. He is still an injured reserve, but a good shot from the veteran that he is out here warming up again with this offense, just getting some of those reps back under his belt. Let's see. We've got a couple more questions coming in. Lindell with a good comment. If we happen to lose today, it's over as far as playoffs. I think we can win, but we have to play a perfect game, and that's going to be almost impossible. The sad truth is that we're so much better than these teams we keep losing to, so we have to go beyond the players, and that falls to the coaches and front office, especially on Goody. It's very sad commentary because they end up wasting a season. And this season especially, this is the championship window. This is the time they had to win a Super Bowl with Aaron Rodgers. And if you listen to the Green 19 podcast this week, my colleague Tom Silverstein said that this really goes back to 2020 when they elected to draft Amari Rodgers over, of all people, Amon-Ra St. Brown, who could very well be a difference maker in shredding these Packers today. Should that have been a different draft pick? The Packers are paying the price for that this year in one of their last championship windows with Aaron Rodgers. Let's see. We have a question from Levi. Lions O-line being super solid. Do they blitz more to get Goff off of his spot? This defense has blitzed very, very little. I don't know the exact numbers, but I think that they are one of the lowest blitzing teams in the league. They very rarely send more than 4. And that's something that the secondary has asked to do more of. Jair Alexander, Rasul Douglas, Eric Stokes, even I think Darnell Savage have all asked to blitz from their spot. So, we've seen a couple of corner blitzes with Jair Alexander a couple of times this year, but not very many. However, we have also seen, to several of your points, this being on the coaching, we have also seen the players push for changes on this defense and push the coaches until they had no choice but to change the scheme. And so with the secondary asking more and more the past couple of weeks to blitz from their corner and safety and even nickel spots, perhaps we could see that more today. And you really do need that against this Lions offense. You can blitz, you can play zone. You don't want to turn your back to the quarterback who can get it deep downfield to some of his big playmakers. Of course, this Lion offense will be without TJ Hawkinson after trading him away this week to the Minnesota Vikings. He was at times their number 1 receiver. So that will be a massive, massive difference in this offense. And could that maybe hinder them a little bit? Because now all of the attention will go, of course, to St. Brown. Let's see, a couple more questions. I see a couple of questions in here about how hot the seat might be for Matt LaFleur. I think he's fine. I think there will be a scapegoat before their head coach is fired. Take that for what you will. However, the defense's biggest issue that they have faced so far this season has been lack of turnovers. The old adage goes, if you win the turnover battle, you win the game. And this Packers defense has just not been able to get turnovers. They've gotten their hands on balls and not been able to secure them. Versus Washington, there were 3 or 4 dropped interceptions. Versus the Bills last week, there was a fumble that was not recovered. And those can be game changers. Jair Alexander and Rasul Douglas talked a lot this week about the need to get turnovers and how they have purposely gone after the ball over the past couple of weeks more, and now they're just waiting for one to come.
When your offense is sort of struggling to put points on the board, does that change the defense's mindset to be more aggressive?
Yeah, I think so. Because you got to get the ball to the offense as much time as you can, so they can get in rhythm and get some points.
And maybe go after the ball.
Yeah.
Score on your own.
Try. Shit. That's what I tell them all the time. Get an interception, somebody behind you, pitch it. We got to get as close as we can to the other side. You already on the other side and you're like 10, all right, bet. But if you on the other side, try to get that to the other side.
It's felt like the past 2 weeks y'all have gone after the ball more.
Yeah.
At least from my perspective, has that been the case?
Yeah. I mean, we was like 33rd in the league 2 weeks ago. Now we like 27, I think, or something like that. So yeah, just try the ball as much as we can.
I think takeaways give guys confidence to make more. So they'll be there because Goff is going to take his chances. So we just have to take advantage.
Turnovers come in batches. They can be contagious, just like hitting in baseball. So if the Packers can get their hands on 1 or 2 today, especially after getting 2 turnovers off Josh Allen last week, we could see a massive, massive change in that turnover margin and differential, which so far has the Packers deep into the red. There was a really good question in here. Here it is. Is Rich a waste of money, or is the special teams fix a cultural issue and will take a few years to really get it right? That's a very good question, Levi, and I would lean a little bit more towards the latter. I think we've seen enough changes that are directly related to Rich Bisaccia to have faith that he is making a lot of good changes in the special teams. Dallin Levitt, Keyshawn Nixon are both additions that are here because of Rich Bisaccia, and they have made a massive difference. Dallin Levitt being the captain on that special teams, even though he's not officially a captain, but sort of being the voice, the leader on that special teams unit has made a huge difference. We've seen Dallin Levitt in the locker room pushing guys to make differences, and the issues that have popped up, Dallin Levitt has immediately been able to identify and address. So I think having him there, which is a direct reflection of Rich Bisaccia, is a huge difference maker. Some of the others are cultural issues. There was a stat this past week from Next Gen Stats that said Pat O'Donnell has a hang time of 4.11, which is one of the lowest in the league, and he also has the worst protection of any punt protected unit of the past 5 years. Had to make sure I got that right. That's a tongue twister. The hang time is not that much of an issue. I wouldn't be concerned about his low hang time. He's a directional punter, and so the hang time is going to be a factor in that. That's not a concern. The protection, though, that's a massive concern. And a lot of that can be cultural, wanting to block on punt protection, wanting to keep him protected. Maybe you do switch it around a little bit too. You know, for as good as Dallin Levitt has been, he is a little bit of an undersized guy, and he is the punt protector. That's something Adrian Amos did last year at times. Do you put Amos back in at punt protector? Do you move Dallin Levitt over? The reason you want Dallin Levitt as the punt protector, though, is because he's in the middle of the formation. He can call the plays. But would it be worth it to put a bigger body there? It's a question worth asking. However, I don't think Rich Bisaccia is the issue. And just simply having Rich Bisaccia in this locker room is a massive difference. Last week when Eric Stokes was brought off the field for not recovering that fumble on Singletary, it was Rich Bisaccia who went over and talked to him, and it was Rich Bisaccia who calmed him down and who got him ready to go back out on the field. Rich Bisaccia is a voice in this locker room that these players respect, that they listen to, and that they are attuned to. He is a massive cultural difference in this locker room, and it's not worth losing him just because special teams has been so bad for years that they're not immediately fixed within 9 weeks. All of that to say, I would go a little bit more towards the latter, and I think he's making a massive difference in fixing that issue. Got a couple more questions up here. Tony asked, will the Packers sign Cobb after this year if they do not keep Amari Rodgers, or will they go elsewhere? That's a very good question. You know, Randall Cobb is 32, I believe. 32, 30, somewhere between 32 and 34. So he is a little bit older for someone who plays that position, that slot receiver position that gets beat up so much across the middle. He's had enough injuries the past couple of years that he would consider wanting to step away. What they really like about Randall Cobb is just having him in that wide receiver room and that voice and that leader for a young group of receivers. But is it worth putting him out there and getting hurt? Amari Rodgers, for all of his issues on punt return, has been a serviceable receiver when he has been out there. It's simply not been able to get on the field because of Randall Cobb. This is purely my opinion, but I would put more attention on turning Amari Rodgers into a receiver than I would a punt returner, because I think he could be a good answer there in that slot receiver position after Randall Cobb is gone, whether that be this year or in the future. Someone said Cobb is always hurt. You only bring him back to keep Rodgers happy. Let's see. Adam asked, what happened to Rudy Ford? Barry said he had confidence in him a couple of weeks ago, and now he says there's no one to play safety to move Savage to the slot. I don't think Rudy Ford is necessarily a Savage safety or plays the same safety spot as Savage. They do use Rudy Ford when they go into a dime defense, so he is able to be out there more. We saw Rudy Ford go in when Adrian Amos was hurt a few weeks ago when he went out of the game with a concussion against the Jets, I believe it was. And so that's really where you're going to use Rudy Ford more, is in that Adrian Amos safety position. I don't know if he's the answer to replace Darnell Savage. But we do see him on the field when the Packers go to dime. So they do have confidence in Rudy Ford. Kurt says, might as well tank and get a good draft pick. Rodgers won't be back and Love isn't the guy. If the Packers lose today, that is their season. That would leave 8 games to go, 3 and 5, 8, 9. Yes, that would leave 8 games to go. That's a lot to ask. You would essentially have to run the table if you had any chance of making the playoffs, and or at least even if they win today And then they have the Cowboys on Sunday and the Tennessee Titans next Thursday. They need to win one of those others, and they're going to need some help to get into the playoffs at this point. And so if they lose today, is the season over? You never want to say it's over, but there's a very good chance. Let's see if we got a couple more questions in here, and then we're going to hear from the locker room one more time. Sorry to hear that, Kurt, that you can't get the game there in Chicago. Adam asked what happened with Kobe Jones. I believe he's still hurt. He has been around. Well, I'll check into that for you, Adam. I'm not exactly sure. I don't want to tell you the wrong thing on Kobe Jones, but I will look into that for you. Levi asked if the O-line is a full go finally. They should be, based on the active list. But, of course, with David Bakhtiari, it's such a fluid situation. It could be right up to game time that they do elect to pull David Bakhtiari. And at that point, Zach Tom, Yosh Nime, and Elton Jenkins, it's just a game of musical chairs, and they all have to be ready for that possibility. Before we do sign off, a couple other things to hear from the locker room. The Packers have now lost 4 in a row. Aaron Rodgers said this week that the Packers need to essentially learn how to win again. Something you always hear in the NFL is you have to know how to lose because you're going to lose the games in the NFL, but you also have to know how to win. And Aaron Rodgers and Jair Alexander, who have both been a part of some winning teams and know what it takes to become all pros, said that might be the biggest issue and mind hurdle for this Packers locker room right now. Let's hear what Rodgers and Jair had to say.
When we start expecting to win and not hoping to win, things can change a little bit. It just takes one game. Could be one. When we start expecting to win and not hoping to.
Okay, well, never mind. We will hear from them in a little bit. Still having some Wi-Fi issues down here on the field. Kurt, yes, to answer your question, Christian Watson is good to play today. I believe, well, he has left the field at this point, but he was out here earlier warming up. He is good to play today. He is active. He was questionable on Friday, but they will have him back out there today. Let's try again if we can hear from Rodgers and Jair on what it takes to get the Packers back into a winning mindset.
When we start expecting to win and not hoping to win, things can change a little bit. It just takes one game. Could be one quarter, one play that can alter the trajectory of a team, both positively and negatively, and hopefully we make that play, that quarter, that half, whatever it's going to be this week to put us in the right direction.
Yeah, because I think we need, it comes to a point where you have to see what winning is feeling, what winning is like again. At this point, we've lost a few consecutive games, not to dwell on the past, but, once we get one, hopefully we can just spiral.
Well, you got to learn how to win again. Every year, you can't, line up and say, we won 13 in the last 3 years. We're going to mow these guys down. It just doesn't happen in this league. The league is deep and margin of victory is very slim, so we got to play a little bit better and have a couple of those plays go our way, and hopefully we'll come out with a W.
As we heard there from Jair and Rodgers, it's almost a point to where it's a mindset hurdle for the Packers, where, as Rodgers said, you have to expect to win, not just hope to win. Do we see that difference in the Packers today versus the 1-6 Detroit Lions? That's yet to be seen. I will say that on Friday, that was the most loose I've seen the Packers locker room in a long time. A couple of weeks ago, after losing to the Giants and then the Jets, Matt LaFleur asked the Packers to play loose and have fun again, and we did see them purposely having some fun that next week, but it was almost a little forced where they knew that they had to do it because their head coach was asking them to. This past week, the guys were having fun. They were cutting up. They were playing music. Will that manifest itself on the field today is yet to be seen. There was one other question in here I wanted to get to. Tony says, last question, and that's good. It'll be our last question too. If this turns out to be a disappointing season, will Aaron Rodgers still have the desire to come back one more time? Tony, that's a great question, and it's one of the questions that's been on my mind this week as well. I can't speak for Aaron Rodgers, but I do know that if they lose today, that will be one of the first questions I would want him to be asked, whether it's for me or one of the other reporters. That is the question, because they're in a small championship window. He's on a hook for 3 years, but can he bow out early and want to retire early? If this season is over, it is a very good question, and one that I feel certain he would be asked this week if they do lose today. Everyone at Packers News picked the the Packers to win. That might be a curse. We'll wait and see. But this should be a team, of course, even with the Lions' offensive ability. If the defense can get 1 or 2 stops, it could cripple them enough. And if the Packers can stick to their run game like they did versus Buffalo and eat up the clock, keep Jared Goff on the sideline, it could be the biggest difference maker in this game today. I think I said Packers 27, Lions 21, I believe was my score prediction. But we will find out. We are about an hour and 10 minutes here from kickoff. Make sure you stay tuned to PackersNews.com for full coverage of the Packers versus the Lions. Spoon's live blog will be starting here in just the next half hour or so before and during the game. Pete and I will be here for you on Facebook and YouTube Live after the game as well. And we'll have full coverage from Matt LaFleur, Aaron Rodgers, and the Packers locker room following the Packers versus the Lions. Thanks so much, guys. We'll see you next time.